Yes, please.
I don't have like a specific, but that it's easy to say that you are going to involve the stakeholders, but like to actually physically involve them in like having meetings, phone calls, like actively involve them, not only involving them, like inviting them to a meeting, but just make sure that
there is a whole science of stakeholder involvement and how and when to involve them, and there's also it's also dependent on their interest and how relevant it is for them. But I mention it as one of the things we have under the challenges that we have. But the thing that you very often, and I wanted to bring this is kind of a summary of the paper on 10 tips. And the first thing that they always say, if you go to talk with your professors and people who have been in the system for a while, you can very well be interdisciplinary, but first you need to be disciplinary. And a comforting thing in this paper is that you don't necessarily have to have a specific scientific background. You can have a very interdisciplinary background, and actually we are calling for more people with an interdisciplinary training, because then you would have a specialization in fisheries, for instance, or you would know the aspects of a certain area like the Arctic. So we are not as strict as we used to be in saying you need to have a specific field before you can start working with transdisciplinary realm. The challenge is, though, that working in this interdisciplinary field is hard work because it takes more time to meet up with people and so on. And it's also hard to find the common concepts and theories, so you always spend more time. And the other thing is, you're seldom very much rewarded for that work, because our traditional systems of how you are getting attention is that you usually publish within your field at the forefront of the research going on there. So what we ask institutions to do is to promote more interdisciplinary science by giving rewards for the best interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary project of the year, or things like that kind of boosts the interdisciplinarity. And if you are working on an interdisciplinary PhD or master thesis, provide your evaluators or censors, opponents, with your project description. The master student a year ago, and for the postdoc the PhD is the one you had just updated after your midterm evaluation, because it provides you a realm where they can move, because else they will all come with their epistemology or their expectations and say this is the way the problem should have been solved. Because when you enter into this interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary realm, there are many options. And if I'm a resilience expert, I go, why didn't you use this tool? Okay. So protect yourself by providing the project description together with your thesis. Okay, I can go on forever. Then they talk about language, learn each other's language, but very often in these big projects we try to find a common concept, a common idea that everybody is accepting, and we bring it up in the first physical meeting when we start writing the project, and we nag on it again and again so that everybody has the same understanding of what the project is about. Still, it does not necessarily always work, but you should try. The other thing we do, we provide a glossary, because if you're an economist and you talk about the ecosystem of food systems, the biologists, they get the blackout for at least 5 minutes before they kind of say, okay, she's an economist, we are fine, she can talk about that, but we know what an ecosystem is. So do agree on concepts up front, and so that you have the same understanding of what words mean. So transdisciplinarity, ecosystems, and so on. There are quite a few things here in the and then they talk very much about the open-mindedness, and you need to be able to listen and ask questions, and it needs a lot of patience to do that. And as I mentioned, it takes time, and it can be complex, and at the end not always rewarding. and then also look for new opportunities, collaborate, and get comfortable outside your comfort zone. Hello.
Hello.
Just enter at the back, please. And then, and also again, be interested, look into the other fields. And as you learned this morning, I threw away the social science paper. Or I didn't throw it away. I took in a few of the slides, I collected some of the information from the paper, but that's not the one I'm referring to now. And then thereby I already easily bring in some bias. Okay, and I mentioned already the fact that try to kind of give, pay attention or ensure that you can, that your institution or your research group provides kind of some support, like reward to interdisciplinary. Okay, how many of you read this paper? Hands up. I'm not angry with you if you didn't, because I provided it a week ago. I'm happy, thank you. Any thoughts about this document? So it's also all about kind of, I like this diagram, but also the paper is easy to read to me. But pay attention, 50% of these people have a biological background, like I don't pay person and so on.
But then
Yeah.
it's maybe also helpful for us others who have the biology background.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
their suggestions are helpful for us.
definitely, and also that therefore it kind of touches us more probably than a pure. What is your background?
I'm in tourism.
You're in tourism, so you have social science background.
Yes, I'm a social science background.
We missed you earlier, but you can certainly contribute now. So what I wanted to show you is that traditionally our projects, and it's mentioned in these papers every now and then, that you need to have iterations, that you need to get back to the people, that you need to, but it's not put in a system really. And like Myron Peck was my competitor when we applied for climate adaptation projects. He had one project where he brought the best people in the world together, and it was a very linear project where I brought the people that I thought it's easy to work with because I wanted to have an iterative project. And the reason is that very often we talk about these linear projects. They follow the old theory of waterfall process models where you work on a software. You have a description of what you want in one end, and you then work on the design and you develop it until you have some testing at the very end. So it could be any type of activity. In this, when we talk about waterfall method, we talk about a linear system where activities are happening in a certain round of steps. But very often we have left this, especially in basic science, in fundamental science, we still very much work in these steps. But if you want to work, this was developed in software engineering, and this is kind of the linear model. And when we work like this, we haven't really checked on the way that it's facilitating and providing the knowledge that our stakeholders and society needs. Because of what you have, the blueprint and the plan you have in the beginning is not necessarily tailored to the needs, because also there is transition on the way and the world is changing. So what we then, already in the 60s, when they were developing computer programs, Bogen came up with this spiral process model, where it was kind of providing the blueprint, developing the model, testing it, evaluating, and then providing a new prototype. And we try to kind of apply this also to our project development. Also, it's very much this kind of a circular or iterative approach is also very much used when we develop training and courses, because we will develop a concept, then we develop the first course, then we test it, we evaluate it, and we revisit it and make it better. Okay, so this course was run last year, first time, and Vera found out, too much reading and too much syllabus because you don't get through all of that text. So she reduced about the text. for instance, and then we added the PhD students to the group. Okay, so the point thing is that you update and you develop during the project. And so in these EU projects and also in these transdisciplinary EU projects, we try to run the project in loops. Any of you been involved in any EU projects somehow? Yes? So the thing is that this is when we have our first prototype, but it's also very often allocated to when we are about to report. So say this could be your PhD project and you have some results before you have the midterm evaluation. And then we can get it evaluated, we adjust and we run a new loop. So the good thing is that these are often kind of aligned with then the 18-month reporting, 36-month reporting, and 48 months of reporting. So it's kind of aligned also. It's also we talk about technology readiness level, how ready is the technology, and you can also say at which level are we after the different stages. So this provides a nice framework when you develop a project and ensures that you have the meeting points set with the stakeholders. You identify whom you bring on when you start. For instance, we have had ICS, the International Council of Exploration of the Seas, FAO, and FEAP, the Federation of European Aquaculture Organization. They have all been on board when framing the project. But the real stakeholders in the case studies we usually bring in for a kickoff. Not all of them necessarily. We bring the ones where we have the biggest ambition on implementation of decision support tools, while the others where we bring in when we already have some results. Here the challenge is always to do the right decisions, to whom to bring in at what stage and how much to involve them. So this is what it looks like in practice. We had a kickoff meeting, we provided the first forecasts. Our modelers were devastated because they were used to work in linear projects where they provide a model after 4 years. Here they had to provide the model after the first year, and they panicking. But of course then they got that advice on what data the stakeholders really need and could go home and provide something that was more relevant. But when you work with modelers, be aware they don't want to give the model away before 4 years or before project end. So start doing it very, very early and be very clear on when it has to be made available. And then in the first round, we focused on the risk assessments. We just scheduled or kind of developed some climate adaptation plans. In the second loop, we had more focus on the climate adaptation plans. And at the end, we then provided the key outcomes like decision support tools, frameworks, guidelines, and a standard for climate adaptation. So this is just to show how such an interdisciplinary project can be developed, and it helps you to decide whom to bring in when. Okay. My time is running. Go and discuss with these two ladies. They will have to speak English now because they have stuck to Finnish by now. So now to the challenges. What are the main challenges that you see when running these kind of projects? I give you only 5 minutes, so just list the challenges that you think of.
Victoria.